Damontae Kazee suspended for the rest of the 2023 season, including the playoffs. Mason Rudolph named the starter by Mike Tomlin yesterday for Saturday's game against the Bengals. Then you have Mike Tomlin preaching change that could be coming for this Pittsburgh Steelers team. Welcome back to Mike Drop Sports, everybody. I'm Jason. Let's talk about your Steelers. A lot of things going on with this team. They're 7-7, guys, finding themselves in a major monumental slide, a huge disappointment. And now you're going to that third-string quarterback. You have the suspension of KZ and Mike Tomlin screaming about these changes. What could they even be? Let's start with Damontae Kazee's suspension. I think it's a little over the top if you ask me, but the league blamed it on his history, that he has already been reprimanded several times, I think like 5 or 6 times for these hits and been fined, and the league wanted to send a message to KZ, and they really did, and it's going to hurt the Steelers in a big way considering the injury to Minkah Fitzpatrick. Minkah has now been injured. This is his 3rd time. Broken hand, hamstring, now a knee injury. So we're getting used to playing without Minkah Fitzpatrick, but the KZ suspension really hinders this defense in a big way. What are they going to do? Move Patrick Peterson back to safety? They really need to figure it out, and they don't have many options, guys. We'll break that down further in the week, but I want to talk about the suspension. KZ, he did commit a foul, guys. It was a penalty. It should have probably been a finable offense. But the ejection and now this monster suspension, I think, is over the top by the league. KZ does have the opportunity to be able to appeal this suspension, guys. He really does now, and he should, because the Steelers really need him, especially if they were by some fluke chance to get into the playoffs. They're going to need a guy like Damontae Kazee, especially with the injury to Fitzpatrick. It's got to be a must. They have to have a guy like Kazee. So if you're the Steelers, you help KZ with this appeal, try to figure it out, see if you can get it reduced. Hopefully they'll at least knock it down to just 2 games or something like that. But this could be literally a 6-game suspension if the Steelers were to make it to the Super Bowl. If you think about it, this could be a lengthy suspension, and I think it's over the top. The league is going a little bit too hard on this. I think, yes, you want to protect defenseless players, but there's too many examples out there of other guys lighting up defenseless players and not getting this type of suspension. I get that he has a history, but sometimes you go too far if you're the NFL, and sometimes you're starting to hurt the game if you're the NFL. This game is physical. This game is about violence, whether you like to admit that or not. That's what this game is about, violence. And they're taking it away, guys, and they're making the game a little bit too soft. I want to protect every player out there because I don't want to see all the good players hurt. But you still have to let them hit. You still have to let them play. And yes, injuries are going to happen. So you have to find that fine line. And I don't know if the NFL will ever be able to find that line and walk that tightrope of safety and aggression. I don't think they're ever going to be able to find it. And I think this is going to continue to be a problem for years and years to come. I think eventually it could dismantle this giant of a league, the NFL, if it's not put in check quickly. You have bad calls by the referees. Sometimes they're over the top, and I thought that ejection was over the top. You're just adding too many things to the fire for fans to bitch about if you're the NFL, and you're causing this league to become way too soft, and it's becoming such a problem that it's becoming almost a hard watch at times, depending on the officiating crew. It's just really tough sometimes, guys, and I don't want to get on a soapbox about it because I don't want people to misconstrue and twist my words like some will and put that in the comments. I am all about safety, but you have to let guys play too. Some of these ticky-tack calls are absolutely over the top. Some of these roughing the passer calls are over the top, and you gotta let these guys play. You really, really do, and I keep saying that. And I think you're causing more injury by making guys have to think way too much to play football, and it becomes a problem, if you ask me. So let's get off that subject. Let's switch gears. Let's talk about Mason Rudolph being named the starter, a guy that he's a third-string quarterback, guys. I know a lot of you were screaming for him to be in, and I agree. He should play over Mitchell Trubisky. He should, at least right now. But Mike Tomlin described it as Hey, Mason's earned the chance. He's a hard worker. He comes to work every day, puts his head down, and does what he has to do, even though he knows he's not getting in the football game. Okay, give the guy a shot. But we've seen him. Well, we haven't seen him for years. But when we did see him, he got benched for the likes of Devlin Hodges, guys. The Duck. He got benched for the Duck. That's all you really need to know, because Devlin Hodges wasn't good, guys. He couldn't throw the ball downfield. I thought he had good intellect. I thought he had good movement in the pocket, but he just didn't have an NFL arm. And when you're getting benched for a guy like that, then that tells me a couple things about you, that you're not really any good. And Mason Rudolph, I thought he has had moments that he looked okay. But when we've seen him here lose in tie games, and it's just a problem. We're going to be screaming to get him out of there soon if he does start. And I don't think it's going to make anything any better, guys. Mason Rudolph is a third-string quarterback for a reason. We keep saying it here on this channel. There is a reason he is a third-string quarterback. He was on the open market and nobody wanted to gain his services. That should tell you something. Then he comes back to the Steelers, a team he's familiar with, and they just went ahead and signed him as that third-string emergency guy. I don't know. We don't know the true interest, but I think if there was a better opportunity out there, he'd have took it. At least in my eyes, I don't think he would have just gave that loyalty to the Steelers and came back and wanted to sit the bench as a third-string guy. I mean, come on. It's absolutely ridiculous. But I don't think Mason's the answer for this football team. Maybe lucky and comes in and has a good game, and that's just enough to get Kenny Pickett back. But is Mason the number 2 even when Kenny comes back? Is Mitch now the number 3 emergency guy? I think so. I think Mitchell now knows that his time here in Pittsburgh is over, and now it's just a waiting game to figure out how you get out of town. Then you have Kenny Pickett. That situation now comes up. Kenny Pickett, Mike Tomlin didn't rule him out and said that the door's open for him to be able to play Saturday against the Bengals. So Mason may not get this opportunity. Kenny may be able to come in. Or maybe Kenny's just close enough that this might be the last week that we don't see Kenny, and he may be able to come in against the Seattle Seahawks, who got a big win against the Philadelphia Eagles. Helped the Steelers out, one of the commenters pointed out, and moved them up to the 14th overall pick currently in the NFL draft, if you're draft watching. But, yeah, Kenny Pickett could come in. And do you want Kenny Pickett to come in? If he's your future, are you willing to risk that future? Is he healthy enough to come in? If you're banking your future on him in 2024, do you want to jeopardize him not being able to protect himself properly and getting injured even further? Maybe perhaps more long term. I mean, that's the thing you have to weigh out if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers. Are you planning on sticking with this guy? I mean, do you want to take that big risk? It's just all what this coaching staff, this front office staff really has to evaluate and break down. And now's the time at 7-7. You're gonna have to start looking and weighing things out in that sense, in that looking at that future. And I think if you're the Steelers, you really have to, because your chances of winning these 3 football games with a beat down defense that can't guard anybody from the middle to the back end, it's going to be real tough to find 3 wins, especially against a hot Bengals team, the Ravens that are good, the Seattle Seahawks, who just beat a great football team in the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, you have problems coming up. And is Kenny Pickett even enough to be the answer behind a shitty, trashy offensive line? An offensive line that probably nobody can play behind with how bad they truly are. A center that rolls the ball back to the quarterback, lets up a ton of pressure. I mean, you're asking for big, big things from guys that may not be that talented, that may not be that superstar, that big name quarterback. You're asking a lot from these guys playing behind an offensive line that can't protect them at all. I mean, it's horrible. It's hard to get anything going as a quarterback whenever you're running for your life and you have to have happy feet because you don't know where that pressure is coming from, because it could be coming from anywhere. It's a real problem to not be comfortable inside that pocket in front of that offensive line. And quarterbacks typically have that tight relationship with the offensive line. But man, it'd be tough if you're a quarterback on the Steelers to be tight with these guys, because they're getting you killed. And they're setting you up to look bad. And the offensive line has to be fixed before any of this moves forward. So let's go and get off this soapbox about the quarterbacks. Since we're on the offensive line, you heard Mike Tomlin talk about changes, big changes. Was his big change putting a third string quarterback in? Is that the big change you're talking about, Mikey T? Because honestly, man, if that's your idea of big change, you got issues, bro. There's other areas. We're talking about that offensive line. Switch it up, dude. What's it gonna hurt? I know we talked about it yesterday that people say that it's too late in the season to make those changes on that offensive line. But you got to do something, man. Change got to happen somewhere, and you got to send a message to this football team. And Mike Tomlin, his message doesn't get received by this team. Nobody fights for this team. I've heard so many other podcasts talk about how Mike Tomlin doesn't have any type of not authority, I would say, but his voice doesn't reach these guys. These guys don't respond to his voice any longer. And you're hearing rumblings out of that locker room that guys don't practice hard, guys take plays off, which we see in the Indianapolis game. Turn on the tape. I don't even have to say it anymore. You'll see receivers standing there doing nothing. You'll see guys giving less than 110%. And that is a reflection of your leadership, if you ask me. Guys that are undisciplined, guys that know there's no ramification to anything that they do. And if you're the Steelers and Mike Tomlin talking about these changes, where do you change? I say the offensive line. I say you mix it up as best you can. I say you try to create some different schemes defensively to start trying to hide some of those major deficiencies that you have. Trying to utilize the best chess pieces that you have on that defensive side of the football. And offensively, you have to become more disciplined. You can't take a bunch of penalties. You have to be really focused on fundamentals, and you have to be able to get the ball out quickly and move down the field. Do you ever see the Steelers just come out and play with sheer tempo for a quarter? Do you ever see them do anything like that, or a half a quarter? Do you ever see them just in the middle of the game just start going tempo? No, you don't see them do anything like that. And when you're in the NFL, you have to change the pace. You have to break up the defense's stability. You have to put them on their heels. And until you're able to do that as an offense, you have a problem. And that may be why the offense looks so bad, because the offense can never get any, the offensive line looks so bad because they can't get in any type of rhythm. They don't put the defense back on their heels. The defense is able to load up in certain areas and push the Steelers around. It's just, maybe that's the way it is. I'm just throwing ideas out here to you guys. These are opinion pieces that I do here. I keep saying that. Some people take me as like I'm giving you the straight answer, the definitive answer right now. I mean, maybe sometimes I'm trying to offer my thought, or all the time I'm trying to offer my thoughts, my opinions, and tell you guys just what I think. But most of the time I'm trying to just give us some talking points, some thoughts, some things for you to think about. And I have to just bring that up again because some people take it crazy, man. Some people go too far, but it is what it is. Some people think that I got all the answers, and nobody does. This is the NFL. It's very unpredictable, guys. Things change week to week, and it's hard to put your finger on it sometimes. But we all can see as fans that the offensive line is bad, the quarterback plays bad, the defense can't guard anybody anymore. They've been on the field far too much. The injuries are catching up to them. Now they're bad from the middle to the back end instead of just the middle. I mean, they're taking major blows, guys. And there's a lot of problems on this team. You have a bad punter. You have a bad coach situationally who makes dumb decisions often. You have an undisciplined football team. The problems and the list of problems is so large, and it grows each week as we watch this football team play. And if you're the Steelers, it's time to maybe get some new energy inside that building. Could Mike Tomlin get this team back in sync and back on the winning ways? Sure he could. Could they win out these last three? Sure he could. But man, the chances are that he's going to lose them. The chances are they're going to continue to slide for the rest of the year. The chances are that this team needs a new direction. And I think if you're the Steelers organization, you have to look at sometimes, you have to be able to Bring in guys that can breathe new life into a franchise, guys that bring in a new perspective, and that doesn't necessarily mean Mike Tomlin's been horrible his whole career, because that's not the truth. But he's been bad for some of it. I say a lot of it, if you ask me. Whenever you haven't won since the beginning of your career, you haven't had a playoff win in 7 years at least. In my eyes, at least that's what I thought it was, 7 years or something like that. A long time. You haven't consistently won any type of playoff games. You haven't won division titles. I mean, it's just a problem. And Steeler fans expect to win. They expect to win division championships, AFC championships, Super Bowls. And that should be the standard. And I think Steeler fans are just so frustrated with the mediocrity, just so frustrated with this winning season bullshit that the big box media keeps breathing down everybody's throat. It's bullshit, guys. I'm sorry. There's no other way to put it. I have no other word to describe it. It's horrible. That is the dumbest statistic in the entire world. Being happy with mediocrity and putting a guy on a pedestal and calling him elite. That's a problem. I'm sorry. That's a dumb statistic. It's stupid. It just puzzles me why anyone thinks that that's some statistic to hang your hat on. Being mediocre. Being okay with being mediocre. That's something you want to sit there and say, I'm proud of. There's just a lot of problems, guys. And a lot of problems that keep on adding up. And then this week starts out with the Kazee suspension, the Minka injury, the bad loss in Indianapolis that brings you to 7-7. Other teams winning that you didn't want to win because now they're moving up in the standings. You're scratching and clawing trying to get an answer at quarterback, and now you've been reduced to put your third string guy in. A guy that's going to start for you that we know's bad, that hasn't produced. He's not good. At least I know that. Some of you may think he's good, but I don't think he's any good. So, but we're all entitled to our own opinion, guys. So we're all going to look at it in a little bit of a different perspective. So, but in my eyes, Mason Rudolph's horrible. And he's not the answer. And he's a third stringer for a reason. And now you're dealing with a guy that you want to be your franchise quarterback coming back from injury possibly. And then you got to weigh the option of if Kenny's your future, do you risk it? Then you have the offensive line that's a problem, and where do you make changes there? How can you adjust there? You have a bad running back in Najee Harris right now, in my opinion. Well, not bad, but mediocre. And Mike Tomlin's so afraid to admit that his number one draft pick shouldn't be the starter, sits a guy that should be the starter on the bench, a guy that has more versatility. And I'm not saying Najee doesn't have a role. Najee does. But when you're a team like the Steelers struggling for points, you need to put the most versatile players on the football field. Then you have wide receivers like George Pickens, some say needs to be traded. A guy that can't get his emotions under control. I know he should be frustrated. He don't get the ball enough. He doesn't get it thrown his way. He doesn't get an opportunity to make plays, and he is a good athlete. But man, dude, you got to be a professional. You got to be an adult. And I don't want to hear, it's 22, 24, 25. Yeah, we all were dumb and made mistakes. But when you're a guy that's put in a position such as George Pickens, you need to have people around you that are going to reel you back in, not be cheerleaders and just encourage your poor behavior. You have to have some mentors, and there's none inside this building offensively for George Pickens to cling on to and learn the ways. It's just a lot of problems, guys. And the laundry list of problems just builds every week. And I'm not sure where this team goes from here. But I think the slide will continue. I think the loss to the Bengals will solidify Mike Tomlin's trade, in my opinion. Or, a new path, I think, for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think this loss to the Bengals will be a sign to clean house. And now the Steelers may go out and win this game, and it may prolong the life of Mike Tomlin with the Steelers. It may prolong the bullshit for some time. I've heard some people talk about that, but we never know. The NFL's crazy. Things change week to week, guys. One week we could be sitting here crying the blues, and the next week we could be talking about this team and their chances to go to the Super Bowl. I mean, it's that crazy. And that much change does happen with inside this football team at times and this league. So we'll see how things play out. We'll see where this goes. But until next time, like, subscribe to the channel, like the videos, share the videos, comment on the videos. I'm trying to answer them all, guys, so be patient with me. As I get time, I answer some, but we have a lot right now, so I'm trying to answer them all because I never want to not answer. So keep your comments coming. I will eventually answer them, so I do appreciate them. But until next time, I'm Jason. This is Mike Drop Sports. Peace.